is Metagame worth buying on Vimeo? I can answer that right now. No.
What?
You need to buy it 3 times. So you have a copy, 1 copy for your mom.
That's right. That's right. We had a lot of subs in a week or a short period of time, and one of the goals for that was a Samox interview. I wanted to see what his thoughts were, how he responded to people responding to him, stuff like that. So that was kind of my thought process to bring him on, give him a platform. I wanted him to be able to connect with you guys, answer your questions, but also I wanted to ask him a few things as well. I am, obviously, as chat can understand at this point already, I am favorably disposed to Samox even before the doc came out, but I'm going to still ask the questions and I'm not going to bias them. I'm going to let him answer the way he feels most honestly answering. And I try to structure this to just let him give the questions as neutrally as possible, let him answer them however he interprets them. And that's my strategy. I am definitely an interview expert, so you should trust me. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. We can talk about that as things progress. But I think my first question, and this is really the question that's been on everyone's mind, is how dare you? Where do you get off making a documentary about Smash Brothers? Like, who gave you the authority, Samox?
Well, I mean, this question actually was first posed by Scar, believe it or not. Back in the original thread for, when I was trying to raise money for the Smash Brothers, which is another documentary you might have heard about. He jumped in and in the chat was just like, on the Smashboards thread was like, we need to have more people involved in this, and who is this guy sort of doing this project? And naturally, later on, he was just like, okay, well, yeah, no, that was good that you should do that.
Right. There was still, I think, a little bit of East Coast Scar going around.
Very much so. I think that was the last vestiges.
So it was lucky you didn't start any earlier. Could have been a real problem for you.
For sure. Honestly, doing another Smash project after the Smash Brothers was, in a lot of ways, just like the logical next step. And slightly influenced by the fact that I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards, and there was all this drive to hear more about you and Armada. Armada is in the Smash Brothers, but very briefly, and just as sort of like a stepping stone for Mango to win Evo 2013. So obviously there was more to that story, and this was sort of the chance to kind of fulfill that dream of kind of completing that story.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think after the first one anyone really had so much concern about you taking the reins here. I think people were just pretty excited. And I kind of want to come back to your vision coming into this, but I wanted to kind of start kind of with what you've recently been up to, because I really want to get to kind of talking about what you're doing today, what's up with Metagame today, and then we'll kind of circle back to some of the beginning, if that's all right.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, go. So, do you have a specific?
Yeah, I had a specific thing. So I kind of wanted to ask, since your first premiere, what have you been up to? And have you played any rollback Melee? Are you having any fun?
I've been missing Melee so much, dude. I haven't been able to play it in years now because I haven't. My original setup was like a little CRT, and I have a cube, and I'm so old school. My computer is not the best. I know. I heard from my chat, when I was streaming the other day, that it works on Mac, as far as I know. So, and mine's an old school Mac. This is the one I've used to edit Metagame on, so it's kind of restricted in that way. But I think I can get it to work, so I am jonesing for that. But I've been busy since the premiere, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And part of that has been making changes that, to give Scar some credit, would have probably taken place before the premiere if I'd had more eyes on this project, because they're relatively simple things to fix, and they go a long way to sort of, I think, addressing some of the issues that people had with the premiere, and they don't really change much. So,
right, it ends up being pretty much the same stories and everything, and a lot of the music is still relatively similar, and everything else.
To be honest, I only changed one track.
And whose track might that have been? If you know if someone were to guess whose track you might have changed, who do you think that would have been?
I think he's in the room with you. I think he's staring at me right now.
Oh, okay. So probably not Mango then. Probably Leffen.
Actually, I'm talking to Leffen tomorrow. We're doing that's part of this thing too. Is I wanted to, because he didn't get an interview in the original. Well, we did. We sat down very briefly at Beauty 9.
Right. So to clarify that really quickly for people, right. You and Leffen did sit down and have a conversation, but it was a very short one. I just want to clarify that for people.
We did. It was a very short one. It was. I would describe it as sort of a similar situation to when I talked with Mango for the first documentary when we
for
sat
the Smash
down
Brothers.
For the Smash Brothers. We sat down in a bathroom, and it was 20 minutes, and it wasn't very. I didn't have my audio equipment. It was very sort of slapdash because I couldn't get Mango to respond to me or sit down and do a proper interview at that time. He was a different Mango.
That's true.
And so in that way, that the Leffen interview it really just didn't work. And it wasn't. It made sense for when you're making a documentary, right? Especially something like this where I did have an idea. If you've read the posting that I did on the Patreon, sort of detailing some of the things that I've done and sort of taken into consideration, I was making this in this very short time frame, and I had sort of an end goal or an ending already there for me in Apex 2015. It was like being hyped as the time you were going to come back.
Right.
Leffen had been on his god-killing spree.
Right.
And so he wanted to, and he wanted to complete that. It was very much sitting as this sort of this is obvious. This is the ending right here.
Right.
So, and I knew I had to interview you and Armada, and that's very big. And then I wanted to do another interview with Mango, and I did all those things. As far as kind of shoring up what didn't happen in the original documentary, where Mango's interview wasn't great. This time around, I talked with him for 2.5 hours. I talked with you and Armada each for 9 hours. So,
yeah.
But I had all those pieces, and so when you have all the things like that on the table, and then you have you filmed for 12 hours on stage on that last day of Apex 2015 with no monopod to help your arm. Your arm's killing you. You see shots of me holding this Canon 7D, which is an incredibly heavy camera. It definitely took its toll physically. But when you're all done, then you have all this footage, and you transcribe it, and then you have to sort of see the story from that point on, because you can't go back in time to re-interview people about what they were thinking then without sort of breaking that that timeline, because there are two specific timelines. There's the one where it was way back in time where you were starting and you're learning and you're coming up through the community and stuff, and then there's the modern timeline, which didn't stay very modern because the production took so long, but
right.
The run up to Apex where everything is in the future. When we're at Apex, it's there's no sort of reflecting on it. So in that sense, there was no way I could ever shoehorn in more about Leffen, and without it making or breaking that in a way. I had to make decisions about what stories were going to be told, and that's the big thing with any documentary. You have to have a perspective, and this one, had Leffen as the bad guy, which he leaned into and was what made that era so awesome.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to get into. In retrospect, this is the kind of stuff that are quick, easy changes. You can remove those specific things that were talked about, because Leffen did apologize for that stuff, and had a very revealing sort of letter that he wrote, so there's a lot of things to kind of take into consideration when you're making something like this, and being able to talk to Leffen tomorrow and kind of have his thoughts and have that attached to this as well, I think it's going to go a long way to kind of giving people more of a perspective on him, when he in the story doesn't really, he's not a focus. He's sort of an agent of change. He's this the death knell for an era, and for me it felt like a death knell, because Mango sort of felt like he might retire. He was kind of, and I get that sense from him in the interview we did. He had this point where he was on the top of the mountain, and he was kind of sitting back, and it was very kind of touching to me. It was man, he just wants to do this for Melee, because he wants to, keep bringing the hype and stuff, but he's conflicted because he wants to sit down and play Counter-Strike all day.
Right.
Which I think he found a way to do.
Yes.
But and then like it sort of felt like Leffen was like the changing of the guard, and his heelness was what kind of informed a lot of the way that that story ended up coming together. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing something like that, but it doesn't make for a very full picture of Leffen.
Right.
So I'm hoping to kind of fill in more of those gaps and about his story tomorrow when we talk.
Right. And will that talk be public?
Yes, it will eventually. I'm hoping to have a long conversation with him because I have a few things that I'd want to do and cover. Some of which would just be kind of classic interview stuff, like beginning of his career, and I guess I'm just gonna do it like what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Okay.
See where it goes.
Right. And so you have, and so I guess we'll come right back and talk about those things. But part of the reason that I wanted to ask what you were doing is so I could say this is out on Vimeo right now. That you finished that up. Right. You finished a lot of these changes. It's out on Vimeo right now. I wanted that in kind of early so that people could be aware of that, and they can go check it out and purchase the episodes. And that's correct, right?
3 times.
3 times, yes. And who is getting each of these copies again?
Well, one for your mom or dad, one for yourself, and maybe one to grow on.
One to grow on, one for the road. Yeah. Great. I love it. So yeah, I mean, I kind of want to ask about this too, but there was so much of, I guess people really...
I kind of hit like a million different...
You did, and because my question was, what have you been up to? And then you went right into the criticism, so I'm trying to figure out, like, do I just...
We can go back and talk about anything.
Yeah, no, but I think that's fine. I think people, now that we've brought it up, I think people are going to kind of want that trend to continue, so let's talk about that. So your expectation... So I know that you kind of have talked about some of the changes, and so... people that maybe haven't seen it yet could assume that there was some need for some changes. And so before that, I want to say, what was you wanted to share this with us, and so you did a live premiere on Twitch, and you said initially, maybe I'm mistaken, but I believe you said you were excited to share it with us. Is that true?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just that no one had really done that before too, with like having a live premiere on Twitch, which. It has its pros and cons. I think, getting everybody together to watch it together is and live, makes a lot of sense if you can't have a theater full of people, thanks to some virus that I've heard is going around, and may have had myself. But also having a chat streaming right by the screen there's something about that subliminally. I think that works on a level where your eyes are constantly going to this thing, and as much as I love the emotes that I made for that, they're bright and they'll grab your attention. Right. And if you're engaged in chat too, you're not engaged in the watching of it. So it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah. So it seems like. So your expectation, if I'm correct, then you were excited to share it with us, as that's what you were talking about. And then as the experience happened, it seemed like you noticed that there were some pros and cons with chat. Was there anything else about the reception? I mean, you said that you wanted to make some changes afterward, and you said earlier that there were you felt like doing everything on your own may have been an issue. So did you feel the reception was not quite what you were hoping for with it, or was it correct in parts, not correct in parts? How would you describe the reception? Well,
a lot of it is colored by the fact that Twitter is such an amplifier for voices, and so a lot of people love it, and that's not lost on me. But I was seeing a lot of things that people would just point out about this thing or that. Some of them were kind of silly, I think. Criticisms.
Can you give an example of something that you thought was silly?
Well, maybe a lesser tier silliness, like the main story. It's about the 5 gods and that their trajectory. And you and Armada and Mango were the top 3 during that time period. You kind of go back and forth, and. So, and I know that people wanted to hear maybe more about M2K+, or especially, and then HBox maybe more about him. But the truth of the matter is, like, that wasn't the story. Like, the story in that time period, if we're talking about the best of the best, never involved M2K or HBox. They were always sort of on a tier below. So I thought that was a little silly of a criticism to be like, talk more about these guys when they weren't, you know, nearly as relevant. Like, the argument to me for a Shootout episode is a lot stronger than a M2K episode if you're talking about, like, who's the best during this time period. That's not to say that you couldn't have more on M2K, like the fact that he's doing a bunch of different games, totally valid. The fact that he's, you know, spreading himself a little thin, which is touched on in episode 7, where it's briefly mentioned as a sort of a run-up to Apex 2015. But I don't know, it was a little silly to me. It's like, you can't tell every story. There's very specific things that need to be told if you're talking about the best of the best and going back and forth. So, I don't know, that just rang a little hollow to me. The stuff that kind of I did respond to, though, is like, it makes sense that if you're going to talk about stuff that, you know, drama that was going on in the community, like, Leffen didn't need to be anything more than just, like, this force, this malevolent force that's coming in to change the guard. And to get into specifics that, you know, he has no chance to sort of respond to, especially when, like I said, he had written like an apology for a lot of those things to come back into the community. It did feel right as a criticism to me. Like, that makes sense. So, and to remove that is relatively simple. I just had to chop it out, change the music a little bit for that intro section, and then it was like, okay, well, that's fine. Then he was banned for a while. He came back. You know, he's brash and abrasive. That's all you need. And so I think that's fair. Also, you know, I think the Mango section with the language was the other thing that people talked about, and that was easy enough to kind of cut down that section or that specific bit where it was played. What people kind of it was probably played more for humor when it shouldn't have been. And just cutting down on that section, you know, I don't think it's right to sort of gloss over the fact that was part of the history.
Sure.
And the language, you know, like this offensive language that we used or that was used, it becomes like water around you, and you're like a fish in a fishbowl. You don't recognize it,
right,
when it happens, and it's only in retrospect that it becomes like, ooh, God, what were we doing? And that was really bad. So I can see it, like, especially without more context. And I put a little warning in the beginning. I bleeped just to explain why things were bleeped.
Okay,
that's new in the first episode, which I think that's kind of akin to what, like, other works have done when sort of societal norms change.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, the best thing to do isn't just to go in and censor stuff,
right?
But it's also just to kind of give more context, which I think is appropriate. And those are the things that I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I can, and probably could have caught him, you know, if I had another person, more eyeballs. But, you know, when you make the Smash Brothers all on your own, who's to tell you can't do it another one all on your own too?
Sure. And so, I mean, there's a couple things I want to say, but I guess we'll follow up on what you just said there. If you, so it seems like I mean, how would you go about, if you say you had to start over, on this one even, and you said and you're saying, well, you want more eyes on it. I mean, would there be concerns about people taking any of that and leaking it if you didn't agree with some of the changes they suggested or something like that? How would you ensure that process would be beneficial for the community but also beneficial for your own artistic integrity?
Well, that is my big worry always is too many cooks in the kitchen, which is why I'm always just like, you know, my inclination has always been, especially in an environment where I get to kind of explore my passions, and that's why I love doing this, is that I'm out here with my ideas, being like, oh, we should do this, or like, you know, let's make this montage here, or hey, we'll fade in a little shot of, you know, the ShizWiz doing a dope-ass combo, and then, you know, it fades into you doing the same combo in round 5. Like, those are moments of pure joy that I get to enjoy. I guess it's a balancing act, but it's one I think that's necessary. It's one that I've never had to try to do. I want to try to just have maybe if not just more sort of collaboration, I guess, in that regard. But it would be new for me. I'll have to kind of figure it out.
Right. So it sounds like the form that would take isn't known yet, but it's something that would be a joint effort, I guess, between yourself and the community, maybe some representatives or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to redo it, I think I would probably have screened it for members of the community. I did screen it to other people who, interestingly enough, didn't have any problems or didn't think that, Mango or Leffen came off particularly badly.
Were these people inside or outside the community?
Outside the community.
Okay.
Just people that had no real knowledge of the history, and their consensus was that this is a gaming world. It's like the stakes are pretty low here, so I think they just sort of thought Mango was the goofball and Leffen is like evil Leffen in the context of gaming world.
Right. They probably they treat it like wrestling or something. This is his character.
There's a very kayfabe, which is I think actually kind of an appropriate way to say it. It was more like a pro wrestling thing, especially at the end where it was like Mango,
Yeah.
It really felt like this guy's playing the heel, this guy's playing the hero. It's like there's nothing here that's like you're indicting the character of any of these people in real life.
Mm-hmm. Let me think. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty fair. But I think that's interesting that you did screen it. It wasn't that it was totally done alone, and you screened it with people, and they did come back and they thought that that was fair. So I guess would you say? So the reception to the first doc was pretty much just universally loved. I mean, there were criticisms over time, especially because the community was changing then, but it seemed like reception was really good. I mean, that's kind of what you were saying before. You felt really good about it. And then, it kind of seems like, the community will like this one because I'm just going to do kind of some of the same stuff. It'll, it's me. I'm the same. I'm the guy making another one, but then I want to make sure people outside like it, so I'm going to screen for that. Was that your thought process, or am I missing something?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that's sort of. I actually was fairly confident that I knew exactly what the community's reaction would be. It was the outside people that I was worried about because there was a lot more jargon in this one than
yeah.
I feel like it kind of gets more into the weeds, and in that sense, it's like the game. I was worried that it would get a little too bogged down.
You needed a terms section like in the first one.
I know. There was there's no explanation for no Johns, and it's a term you used a couple times. So that was I always felt like this one was kind of. It had rough edges, but in the same way that Melee has rough edges.
Sure.
It's like, they're a product of their production cycle, and they just add to the uniqueness, and the jank kind of gives it character.
And the jank, well said. I'd like to push back on one of your defenses against the criticism a little bit, because I could imagine many people might be thinking this. I've seen this around, so I'd like to offer this here to have you respond to it.
Sure.
Your initial comment about there not being so much focus on Hungrybox and Mewtwo King was that the stories at the time were not as focused on them, and yet isn't the foundation of Metagame about these five and about Leffen changing the place of these five? So is it unreasonable to ask that each of them? I mean, I feel like M2K's in the first episode was very highlighted, but certainly just throughout for Hungrybox a little more, or M2K in more parts or something like that. I imagine people would have that concern, so I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
I mean, I can understand that. It's not. I mean, the thing is, like, Hungrybox and Mewtwo King just, they weren't high. Part of this is because they did get their due in the Smash Brothers, where Mewtwo King has an episode and he kind of flows into other stuff. Hungrybox has Mango's episode. So,
that is, everyone has said that's the Hungrybox episode.
That's the Hungrybox episode. So I don't know. I didn't feel like I was short shrifting them by not focusing on them very much, especially because, like I said, they're not. They were never in the conversation of best in the world during this time, and you three were. So the focus, they can the fact that they're there, representing in the same way. It's sort of like keep coming back to Chudat's stuff. It's like people did want to see an episode about Chudat because he was really good and one of the best in the world, but he never got one, and part of that is sort of I guess focusing on what stories you want to tell in a documentary. You can't tell every story, from everybody.
I mean, there were 7 perspectives in the first one.
Right. And for this one, I think it's just, you can justifiably say it's the story about the 5 gods and Leffen. But, 2 of those gods just didn't get a lot of airtime. I mean, I think that's just what it was, is that they weren't as relevant to the discussion of, like, being the best in the world. If I had done it again, I mean, it also is sort of a reflection of like what you have, like what can you tell, what stories can you tell. I guess I could have shoehorned in more about both of them, but it didn't serve sort of the stories that I was interested in exploring using the stuff I already had. So
right, you feel it would have affected your overall product if you had done that.
Right. I mean, it's already almost 7 hours long.
Right.
And I don't know. You have to, with the tools you have, with the things you have in front of you, especially when your budget is what it is, you're kind of constrained, and you have to sort of figure out what is going to make the most sense from a storytelling perspective, without sacrificing the integrity of what actually happened. So it would be cool to maybe get a little, like the Big House 3, where M2K won his first like big tournament in a long time, but I don't know how that would play into like the stories that were already being told. It would have felt diversionary. Like if you're in like episode, that would have fallen probably in like episode 5 or 6, and 5 was about sort of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, where you're learning to incorporate neutral into the way you work, and you're discovering more about yourself and another way of living. And then if we added, okay, well then there's M2K, and then he wins this one, and he kind of comes back. It just would, to me, that feels diversionary. It adds more. It's not necessary.
Right, and so this is something that, I mean. So to kind of summarize what you're saying, I think you're saying that this product, told in the way you told it, is based in part on what was going on in the community, but also what you were receiving from these people in terms of what you talked to them about, and you're thinking of. Again, your main goal here with this was to promote this more to the outside. So the story, while it would have been more true in the community sense, would have sacrificed perhaps growth potential in the larger sense. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I guess even more simply than that, it's like I knew I sort of just had Legos to work with, and I had certain Legos, and I can't necessarily. I mean, you can do a lot with Legos, that's for sure.
True,
but there are certain things you just can't do, if you have the building blocks that you have. And I didn't have a lot of M2K pieces and Hungrybox pieces, and I had a ton of PPMD, Armada, and Mango pieces, partly because of just what was happening during this time period, but also just because, that's what I had. Like, I wasn't at the Big House 3. That's just, I was at the Big House 4,
Right,
so
right.
That's just the reality of it. And that's the great thing about documentaries. They do have a perspective, one perspective or multiple, but you can make multiple documentaries, so you have multiple perspectives. And I think you could make another documentary about M2K and Hungrybox during this time period.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout outs to Bronol.
Yes, I was going to say.
I'm sorry, I have to pander. I got a lot of French viewers now. You've got to forgive me. Dr. Dupipi. So forgive me for that. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I'm going to grill you about on that. I do think that can make things more clear for other people.
And again, I'm totally see other people's perspective on it. It's just, again, it's like, it's the building blocks. It's what you got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think so many people just didn't get to hear your perspective in this situation. And sometimes they might not have agreed with it too, and that just might have been one of those things that worked out. But I mean, it's my hope that regardless of whether people end up agreeing or disagreeing or partly with you, I want to be able to amplify your voice today. That's what I'm here for.
Well, I think not many people know what it's like to make a documentary like this.
We were going to get into that. I promise. I want you to be able to talk about that. And good. Okay, so what is the process of creating a documentary like this? And I mean, to kind of push in a certain direction to just create this. I mean, you were doing so many updates. Obviously, I was too, for things that were not related to Metagame. Yeah. But we were putting out updates around the same time, and in a lot of your updates, you were saying, I'm editing. And it's like, how many years can one guy edit? I mean, really, Samox? Come on. Surely you gotta, after a year, you gotta be good, right? Come on, what's the story here?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that I really was essentially done with the edits around 2018, I want to say. Like, I had the structure in place in 2018 for sure. And I was almost.
And you finished your footage. You finished your footage in 2015. That's correct.
That's right.
That's like three and a half, maybe close to 4 years of editing.
Yeah. Well, so if I started shooting in around The Big House 4, and then I shot through Apex 2015. So it was like 4 or 5 months of shooting. And there was a frantic shooting schedule in that time. I was bouncing around all over the place. I was, down with you in North Carolina.
And you went to Hungrybox right after.
Went to Hungrybox right after. I was in, on Armada's floor for like 11 days, sleeping on his floor. I was sleeping at Alex 19's house for, I forget how long I was there, but we hung out for a while, like me and all of Mango's friends.
Right.
So that was all like during this very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And in that sense, the documentary is almost like a time traveler. It was very, very much sort of constrained in this time period. And
why would you? And you would say it was constrained. Why would you say it was so constrained in that way? Would you say it's a financial reason, or there was just so much happening in the time in the community? What would you say the reason for that would be?
Partly financial, partly me knowing I had so much editing I had to do, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have enough money.
You have to stop somewhere.
I have to stop somewhere, and I have the story already. I was like, okay, I got it. I got the PPMD, thing. He starts out really heavy punish, goes into neutral, and has this revelation and learns more about himself and learns to love himself. That's my main guy. Armada, he starts out obsessed with the first place. He travels around like obsessed, and then he gets second place at Apex 2015, and he's okay with it. He's like, that's not the most important thing in life. And then Mango also, he's at the top, and then he has the classic line, sometimes you go out as a buster. Right. Where in the interview beforehand, and I love this, he said, I'm not going to go out like a buster. Which I think was just, okay, well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So, I had the pieces I had shot. I knew in my head, I had like this sort of image of like all the pieces, and those get crystallized when you do. I had to transcribe every single shot that I did. Hundreds of hours of stuff, including gameplay footage, like montaging stuff. That's a huge part of it was montage or transcribing, and that took maybe like 8 months, 6 months.
8 months to transcribe. So that means, so when you say transcribe, just so everyone understands, you mean so someone says a line to you, like I'm talking to you now, I have to say, someone says a line to you, and you have to go, he says a line to me, and he types, and you have to type it down, right? And that was that was the first 8 months of you just saying, this is all the stuff I had, let me write all of this down.
Yeah, I might be misremembering, it might not be that long. It's like 6 to 8 months of just doing that, doing preliminary stuff, sketching things out. How is this going to work here? How's that going to work here? And then, for then, of course, like originally I wanted to make this a movie. It wasn't going to be another series. I was like, I'm done making series. I want to make a movie. And I could have made a film, I think. And it probably would have been all right. It's just, there was so much more. I needed more space to sort of explore the storylines that I wanted to delve into. So I did spend maybe 6 months on a failed endeavor to make a movie.
Right. And so we have 14 months. There's the transcribing, then 6 months to try and make a movie. You realize that was not the plan, any longer. I mean, so you want to do something different. You don't want to choose to do the same thing all the time. You want to expand your artistic abilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, and like I would love to be able to say, yeah, I made a movie and a series.
Sure.
Because I can.
And put it on the CV.
Yeah, exactly. For my next working retail job or whatever.
Right.
But and then there were just things that kind of get in the way. There were things that happened this time that didn't happen, the first time, which is chiefly that false start with the movie,
yes.
And then having to go through and get all the permissions and stuff that I didn't for TSB. Where
right, and let's talk to people about that, because I think so. There was editing, so you had to transcribe 8 months, then you go for 6 months to try and make the movie. It doesn't end up panning out, so you have to reimagine what you're going to do after you've been deep in it. Then you have to start editing that, and afterward you're trying to clear legal sources.
Right.
And so let's explain to people why you need to do that. You didn't need to do that for the first one.
Right, because the first one I was just like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing legally wise. I'm just gonna put something together, and I want to get it out there, and the universe will do what it will with it. So I didn't have to what you're supposed to do. I didn't know that what you're supposed to do is you go to the people that have the footage, or the pictures and stuff, be like, hey, can I use this? You sign this piece of paper that says you say I can use this, and then you can use it. And I had to do that.
Sounds easy, right?
Yeah, right. You have to do that for 170 different people or organizations, and you all have that friend that you send a message to, and then you're on waiting or on red for weeks and at a time, like that. Out of those 100 and some odd people that I had to respond to, there's a lot of people that were either dubious about it, maybe wanted money for further stuff, or any number of reasons why it would take a long ass time, especially when you're one guy doing this.
Right, you don't have a legal team necessarily, right?
Right, and I had to research some of these things, like some of the footage that was shot for Pound 3. Like those in the first episode, you see some shots of the venue. Okay, who shot that? It was a YouTube channel by the name, I think it was Taco Ninja. And I was like, okay, who the hell's Taco Ninja?
I don't know.
I have to investigate, and I eventually found out it was a woman now living, in another country. That this was a long ago time for her, where she was there as like a young woman, just shooting stuff.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, that's fun. That's amazing. You found this and better." So, but it takes time. You have to find all these individual things.
So some people will say yes, and they're hard to find. Some people will say yes, but, and those people what? And so, were there people that you ended up convincing, or were there things that you ended up not using because of their demands, because again your financial constraints, or kind of how did you end up being able to clear as much as you did?
Well, to be honest, the actual part, if I had a conversation with someone, 99.9% of people would be like, yeah, sure, totally, I'll sign that, that's not a problem, because we generally want to help each other as humans. Very tiny percentage of people were like, I want something, I want money for this.
How much money, can I ask?
Well, I guess because he's now persona non grata for very good reasons, like the Evo guy, I forget his name. He wanted money to use some shots.
Well, ain't that something?
Yes, kind of not surprising, right?
Yeah. What do you know? How about that?
Yeah. So, most people are totally fine with using archival footage in a documentary and just be like, yeah, sure. Like, when people come to me and ask, hey, can I use this clip from the Smash Brothers? And I think you should always ask people, if you're going to make something that you release for money, or anything really. But I will always say, almost every time I'll be like, yeah, totally, absolutely, go use that. There was only one other person who wanted money for their picture that they took, and only one person outright refused to let me use a picture.
Can we ask who that is so we can witch hunt them?
It was some rando, and the great thing was it wasn't even a great shot. It was like a random kind of a blurry shot of M2K and Armada from some tournament, and I just wanted it because it looked like they were actually in a home, and I needed a shot for some place. It should have been like a house.
Yeah.
So that was the shot. I was like, okay, well, can I have this? And as soon as the conversation went to, can you sign this? They were like, no, absolutely not. So I think some people are spooked about it.
Yeah.
To be honest, when you say, hey, sign this,
Sure.
sometimes people are spooked about that. But that most people are just like, yeah, totally use it, it's fine.
Right. So was the legal sources something that was going on alongside the editing, because you had to decide what you wanted to do, what you didn't want to do, and so there was some things that I believe that were supplemental, that were things that you didn't shoot yourself that you would have needed permission for, that you wanted to find people for, right?
Yeah. Well, you know about that. You your homie Money Mike, went out and shot some stuff in North Carolina for me because I needed shots of where you lived, and forgot to get B-roll when I was down there for that, or at least didn't have a chance to.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were definitely things that had to be kind of filled in later. I am the way that my brain works, and this is where, again, if I had a bigger team, which you need more money for a bigger team, you'd be able to do the legal stuff at the same time. That is what ideally you'd want to do. So you get something cleared, then you can use it, and then you do it. I did it backwards, where I did it, I just made the thing, and then I was like, okay, this thing, can I use this thing? So I had to kind of do it in reverse.
Right. So you're telling me, Samox, that you are not making these documentaries to get filthy rich? You're not exploiting the community?
My Roth IRA would say that it agrees with you because I had to raid it to finish this thing.
Oh dear! I remember this. I remember a story like this from the first one. Unfortunately.
Well, the first one I went into debt on my credit card, and then was able to come out of it. I worked at Patagonia Boston to come out of it because I didn't make any money on the first one. The second time around, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this and justify it without at least breaking even, and I'll tell you when I break even, it'll be a miracle.
Also, we're not there yet.
No.
Support Samox on Vimeo.
Yes, please buy 10 copies now. It's 10. But no, I knew that I wasn't going to make a shit ton of money doing this. It's a passion project. It's for an esport. Yes, it's the biggest fighting game in the world. I think Smash in general. Including Ultimate and all the other ones. I think it's the most popular fighting game in the world. But the competitive scene of Melee is a smaller story of that. There's no sure things, and when you're following your heart and you want to make something happen, sometimes you gotta raid your retirement fund and eat beans and eat ramen and
sleep on the floor in Armada's place.
Cry in the bathtub. Those are all the things you have to do.
Right. Yeah, that's challenging, and I kind of want to talk about a little bit of what that process is like when you're going lean and you're in this and you're in it for so long and you're making these updates. I mean, people were doubting that it would even come out.
I know.
And when you're going through all that process and people are saying that, like, how is that affecting you?
It honestly didn't affect me very much.
Okay.
I just sort of shrugged it off because I knew I was going to finish it. I did it with the first one. Watch me do it again. It's like
your first rodeo.
Yeah, I remember Scar. What was it, Scar? Or somebody was shouting out that. It was Scar. It was at the Big House 3 where they were talking about this documentary that had been in the work for forever, and they were referring to the first one, which was only like a 2-year production cycle. So I'm used to that, hearing people say that it's never going to come out. But I can see how that might be discouraging to other people that want to do the same thing. And you have to be a little crazy. Like any passion in life, you have to be a little crazy, I think, to pursue it to a high level. So.
Okay. Yeah, and so just to clarify one more thing regarding that. So you're transcribing and then you're editing and then you're getting legal sources and it's taking years. Was there, if it wasn't for doubters for outside, were there inside doubters? Was there any, what did it feel monotonous? Did it feel like a grind? Or is the process, did you just really enjoy it most of the time? I mean, what was your experience making it over a long period of time? Did your relationship to it change or anything?
That's a great question. I feel like, you could compare it actually to getting good at Melee in some ways. I would imagine, I might be wrong on that because I'm not particularly good at Melee, but I feel like it sort of mirrors in some way the grind that you have to put in to get good at certain things. It was definitely a grind at certain points, but I just knew that I had something here. I knew as soon as I was done at the end on stage at Apex 2015, I was like, okay, I've got something here. This is definitely a compelling story, and so that was always in the back of my mind. It's like I want to be able to do justice to PP's sort of narrative arc, and I want to do justice to Armada's arc and Mango's, and those are the things that really kind of drove me on. But man, it definitely it's a long, hard road to hoe, and if you don't at least enjoy it a little bit, and I do enjoy sort of, I guess if I was like in a D&D campaign, I would be the wizard that spends all his time in the learning in the books and then coming out and then unleashing hell on the battlefield. Like I'm down to sit that in the tower and study all the spells and shit. So that I'm okay with that life. But again, as you get older, I think you do want to, and you've been doing that for a while. You want to collaborate more. There's a lot of force multipliers, I think, that I'm not taking into account. Like I can be a really good asset on a team, I think, or working with someone who also shares a passion and a vision for something. So I'm really looking forward to kind of exploring that, where it's not just me grinding in the basement, working on my multi-shines.
Wow. Yeah, I really want to talk to you about that, but I think that the future projects feels like it's a little bit later. I just want to make sure that we get a couple other things.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me make sure. Yeah, no, I mean, you touched on it. We'll go for it. I guess the only thing I wanted to kind of mention first is I guess I'm going to step out of interviewer role for just a moment and say that I remember when we talked at Big House 4, which was in 2015.
Big House 5.
Or Big House 5, excuse me, you're right. And you looked quite frazzled, and you said, I don't know why I did this. I am never making another one. This is really rough. I'm gonna go sit in a log cabin and write poetry or something, write fiction afterward. And so I find the contrast very funny. And so I think but I also think that that's what you said before about the Melee player aspect is very interesting, because so many Melee players, they are like, you'll see tweets occasionally from people that are improving, especially top 50, top 40, and they're like, I'm enjoying it, but it hurts, and they'll like, this game is so good, but it feels like it's just taking everything. And so I think that there is a lot of overlap there, like you were saying.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I actually don't remember telling you that.
Yeah, I mean, but you didn't say it quite that way, but you know that was the intent.
Well, I definitely I think this is true spiritually and in so many other ways. Like, you don't grow. Growth hurts. Like
it can, yeah.
At least it can be. It can be rewarding too. It's like that section where Toph in the episode 1 talks about learning. Your hands kind of getting better, and you learn how to L cancel and stuff like that, and it feels like a superpower. Like that to me rang so true, and I knew I had to put that in there because that's how it felt for me when I started getting better at Melee and I started doing the advanced tech. And that I think is so true with anything in life, where you start at something, when you fucking learn to walk, like you get up and you fall on your face and it hurts. Apparently, I don't remember, but like you just have to kind of keep failing and keep failing and keep failing until you start getting it and you start understanding it, and then it becomes like second nature to you. And that process is magical, and it can be very rewarding, but it's almost always painful too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, some people like pain, but we're not really here to talk about that.
Yeah. That's the late night stream.
That's the after dark. We don't tweet that one out. Yeah. All right. Well, let's hard cut from that, and I wanted to kind of take just one more moment to talk about what your experience was when Metagame aired, because I wanted to kind of build what that was like for you as an artist to have that experience, and then you're excited to share it. And then I kind of want you to, like, how did you experience what it was like to share the doc for everyone? And then has your perspective on that experience changed? Because that's been, a month and a half since then. So I'm kind of curious if what that's like going back, because maybe at the time you were, upset and you're like, I'm never going to make another one, or maybe now, maybe you're like, okay, that was a little of an overreaction. Like, I'm kind of curious just what your feelings were at the time.
Man, that was a really intense time. Like, it was such a roller coaster. Obviously, when you're creating something for as long as I was, you're really hoping that people like it. And the first day, like, people were just like falling over themselves to gush over how amazing it was. And then it was like the next day was just the polar opposite of that, because the cacophony of the Twitter world was so negative that day. And then I think it kind of evened out at the end, where it was like, well, I have problems with it, but it's pretty awesome.
Right. And how was that? How was that in terms of how you felt about all of that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to. I felt like. I mean, there's a shot in episode 5. Yeah, it's episode 5 where this is the aftermath of Armada's Genesis 2 win. And we're now in the perspective of Android, and he's in bed, which is actually me in bed, under the covers. And then you see me drop the phone as Android, and I run out the door in my underwear, and I'm jumping up and down, Android happy. That's sort of partly how I felt. I felt pretty naked watching Twitch chat in their ups and downs. Like every second, every millisecond.
Right, every comment is good. Like it's a positive one, good. Every negative one gonna cut. Right.
Yeah, and it's always just like you cannot. Especially in that situation, you should not be listening to Twitch chat where there's like 80,000 people or whatever. I think it's between Ludwig's restream and our stream is like 80,000 people. Constant.
Right.
That is tough, especially when it was like turning against me, and people were like, "Look at Twitter." Da 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 da.
Right.
So that was difficult, to say the least. I don't think I've ever had that level of hatred or experienced that level of hate.
I mean, in general, a lot of that focus. I mean, it's hard for a lot of high level players or just anyone in the spotlight. No one likes that. A lot of people are very worried about it, and so. Yeah, I mean, to go from isolation to all of that suddenly, I imagine is a big change for anyone, especially for you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it gives me a sense of. I mean, I guess I am in the public eye, not as much as you guys though, because as players, you guys got a lot more attention, and you're much more. In the public eye in that sense, because you're the ones that are the main characters. You're the guys that are we're making these stories about. And obsessing over. So I got a taste of that, and I could definitely have sympathy for seeing, hell, even in just like my watching various Reddit threads or whatever about like my progress, or I would see stuff like people would write and be like, "That's just bullshit. That's not true at all. Where did you hear that? Why you're just making that up?" Like, so.
Every top player loves Reddit. Don't worry about that. don't even worry about that one. I think you're on your own on that one. That's very unusual. You feel that way.
So I do have sympathy, and in that sense, I really it did help me sort of understand too, like where Leffen+Mango come from as far as like not wanting certain things out there, when it was like this was either old stuff or stuff they had apologized for or needed more context, and I was like, okay, well. If I get shit on like this, they must feel really bad too. If certain people come on and say stupid shit. So I wanted to be sensitive to that, and that made me feel good to make those edits. Which were easy enough to make.
Right. So the final product you still feel like is still true to you and everything.
Oh yeah, it still tells the story of evil Leffen, because that was his heel sort of persona.
Yes.
But in the interview I do with Leffen, I'm going to talk about the other side of that, and that's going to be an interview that kind of follows the project, and will be available just gonna put it on the Metagame Doc YouTube channel. But yeah, he has an interesting story too, and it's like, you know, there could be a whole nother documentary done from the opposite perspective, where you guys are this evil pantheon that kills everyone.
Yeah,
and he comes along.
We keep the community down by how good we are and how untouchable we seem, and then Leffen brings justice, and he shows that we're all human.
Exactly, and like, you know, he was betrayed by Armada. And,
yes,
you know, the Swedish community, like,
and M2K played Marth, so therefore he was an evil person.
Yes, and then the Zip Boys, you know, come out from the you know, to help to rally around him. Like,
of course.
I actually, I don't know. I might talk to Leffen about that.
Oh man, that would be interesting. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, to answer your point, that whole experience was incredibly draining and difficult. But no, I've had some distance from it. I've been able to sob in private and on stream, embarrassingly.
Yeah, I heard the stream you did a little while ago. You were drinking, and I don't know what happened. All I know it was intense.
I mean, I needed that moment. I think everybody needs, like, sometimes when you go through a rough time, you need to sort of let it out. And
you got to feel.
I do need to do it a little publicly, I guess. But now I feel a lot better having done it and put it into perspective. So, you know, you get over it, you move on.
Yeah. So we're just confirming your mental state now. Yeah, and I do want to. Let's see, but you've touched on it a few times, and so I kind of want to speak. I kind of want to ask the question broadly. I know you've talked about this in various forms already, but I want to ask it broadly. What do you want to try and do from here? Where does Samox go? He's made 2 docuseries. What does he want to do next?
Well, in the immediate term, I have a couple plans. One of them, I have a series in my head that I've been kind of thinking about, where it's a shorter form series that kind of focuses on key moments in, like, esports, like, things, and maybe sort of, and again, this is all sort of miasmic. It's not in place quite yet, so this might change. But my thought process was that it would be really interesting to sort of highlight sort of a moment in esports and then unpack it. Like a big moment. And like the one that always came to my mind was I was actually at DreamHack 2014 Winter, Jönköping, where Fnatic pulled out the overpass boost, the Olaf boost, and they did this, you know, this incredible, this basically turned around this huge semifinal moment, and it was all based on this boost, which ended up being an illegal boost. So they had forfeit.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's an incredible story. People have actually, there's a great series on it already. Unfortunately, I wanted to do it, but maybe I'll touch on it too. But stuff like that, where it's like you kind of explore these little critical moments and then maybe kind of expand from there. Something like a 5-10 minute kind of series, something that would be able to kind of turn out more frequently, so I'm not waiting 5 years, or you guys aren't waiting 5 years for the next thing.
Yeah. So shorter form content focusing on individual moments or stuff around those moments.
Yeah, that for sure is something that I want to do in the medium term. Longer term, I was thinking about potentially doing another one of these things, but again, having more collaboration.
So you want to do another like Smash project, another Melee project?
Potentially, not necessarily Smash, but a longer form project where it's like Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike's always been a game that I've loved, and it has a rich history. I think that could be a really interesting series to kind of pursue it. Not necessarily in the same way that I've done with previous stuff, but a longer form series. It deserves a competitive series, or the competitive scene of that game deserves attention, I think. And there's other irons in the fire. I've been talking with my executive producers, who are awesome people. Chris Brown, the Alpha Zealot. He's been such a big help and a major reason that I was able to complete the metagame in the first place. And Peter Grant Sr., my one of my best friends' father and shaper of who I am today. They make up the Brain Trust. So it's sort of up in the air. We've been kicking around some ideas where the next steps might be. But
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good to. I think it's important to have support just generally, but also creative support. Maybe one of them can see that there's a market somewhere. Maybe one of them can use their skills in a certain way that maybe hasn't been done in a certain esports scene before, and then you bring your direction to it.
Absolutely, and that's where collaboration is a new thing for me, man. It's new.
I mean, it already sounds like you've done that some with Metagame, bringing some people on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but not artistically. They were always. I mean, they gave me advice on like things that might be good to highlight or to focus on as far as like read edits and stuff. But I definitely haven't done the sort of creative kind of collaborations that I think I should do.
Is that something that you want to do?
I think it's one of these growth moments. It's something that in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to do my own thing.
Right, because you have control of the vision.
Yeah, exactly. It's my own world, blah, blah, blah. But I know it would be good as a growth sort of move to do that and get experience doing that. I think everyone should be able to work creatively with others. And I can, but I've never done it sort of in that open of a fashion where I'm sharing a creative vision. And collaborating on it.
Well, as long as you're finding people whose visions you trust and are willing to listen to you, I mean, I think that is something that can be possible.
Exactly. I think it's exactly right.
So short term, Metagame, one more time. So it's on Vimeo. It was on Twitch.
Yeah.
Everyone says, oh, it's on Vimeo, so it's not coming to Netflix or it's not coming to a streaming service, right? Is that true?
No, and in fact, it's a good thing to keep in mind if you are, like, you have your sights set on going to other platforms. Vimeo is a great stop point or just a way to kind of get your stuff out there. I love Vimeo for a number of reasons. It has a better compressor than YouTube. You have to pay for that privilege, but it makes the quality of the image much better.
Oh, wow.
Their tools, if you wanted to sell stuff, are really amazing. I just really appreciate their business style. And they give you 90% of the profits. So
that's pretty good.
Compare that to YouTube, where you get, like, what, 45%?
Yeah, it's about 45, or they take 45, I don't remember.
So, but in any case, I see them as sort of like a platform that you can park your stuff at, get it out there for people who want to rent it, download it, and for Metagame, I think the sky is the limit still. It's we're still in that process of finding the right, I guess, agency to. This is all new to me as far as that process goes. But you get find someone to sort of shop it around and potentially get it on something like a Netflix or
You're cutting out a little bit here. The people need to know about where it's going, and they're not going to be able to get it because Discord has decided they want that information hush hush. No, we got you back now. You're back.
Yeah, I think that was someone holding on to the the cord.
Well, let me go ahead and say it just so it's clear. Samox is shopping Metagame around. He is still trying to get it on a streaming service, whether it's Netflix or something else. And he's got business-minded people that are helping him do that and sort that out. And so he is working on it. He really wants to get that there because that's going to be something that's going to be good for Melee's growth and also just for his own growth, right? So I think that's something everyone wants. And if there's some way that the people that are listening to this that can hear your voice right now can help with getting this stuff somewhere. I know some people said that you can suggest titles to Netflix. Is there anything else that people can do to support getting this out there?
Yeah, I mean, either one of the I think there's a link that Netflix is like, what would you like to see on the channel? Definitely do that. Hell, I might even just suggest you suggest the Smash Brothers as well.
Oh,
because I'm not averse to going back and making a few edits to the original documentary, and finding a way to get that on a place because I know that was what started a lot of people as well into the community. So. Just push what you like, push what you love,
and that really I'm thinking back to your original argument about how your original point about how HBox and M2K had their time to talk more in the first, but then this one's going to be on Netflix, but the other one will only be on YouTube. But if you get them both out there, then that's plenty of exposure for that. So I think that would be something that both of them would be good to push for. Yeah, especially because if I can make. Bring the Smash Brothers up to a point where I would feel happy about it, or
everything's cleared and we're getting it onto other things like as a sister project. Like those
Yeah.
things go together really well.
Yeah, they do.
You know, it would establish what the hell no Johns means if you watch the first one first. So you know, that's definitely a potential in the cards. One of the many things I have to do.
Right. So you are looking on expanding your own creative opportunities, but at the same time, you're still trying to make the most for what you put out there. And so, if you have anything else that you want people to do to promote that, you know, you can tell me, or if you come back with something, you can let me know, and I can try and do something. We can do another talk where we talk about it, or some other nonsense. I don't know. We'll figure. We'll show something else while we do it. But I just wanted, because again, I wanted to put that in early, so because I know most people don't watch this deep. But anyway, I just, you know, I really wanted to make sure that people understood it, because so many people were saying, oh, well, it's on Vimeo, so I guess it's not going to Netflix. I'm like, guys. Yeah. So you know, I really wanted.
Yeah, exactly. There is some understandable misconceptions about you know the platforms and stuff and how that works.
What have you, I mean, we've talked about this a bunch of times too, but I want to kind of ask it in parts. So what have you learned from this work? And so what would you then, like, so let's say someone else comes to you and they say, I want to make a Melee documentary, or I want to make Melee content. Like what advice would you give them?
I guess the first thing that I would say is you got to have a vision. You know, you have to have the passion and the vision for something. So if you're excited, that's the first step already done. You know, you're already like sort of like, I want to tell a story.
Yeah.
And the other part is more sort of granular, where you have to have a grasp, I think, of budgeting, the kind of story that you're going to end up telling is going to depend a lot on, you know, what you're budgeted for. If you don't have the money, then you can't, you know, go to Sweden and talk to Armada.
Right.
And, you know, you have to be able to kind of raise the right amount of money. And I think I was able to raise the money to tell the story that I could. If I had more, I could have expanded it and you know, probably included more aspects for sure. Actually, you know what? I think I wrote down all of my best advice. I have a link that I can send you that I did for the first project, which has useful info. But
I'll put that in the description of this video.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But those are the two main ones I'd say. You have to have a vision, and you have to have sort of a practical understanding. Hopefully you understand, like, you know, basics of video production and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But kind of having a grasp of scope, I think, would help. And if I had more of that, I think I wouldn't have wasted 6 months or whatever on making it a movie instead of just going all out and making it a series right away. Sure,
but maybe you learned some important things from going for that too, right?
Exactly. Doing that, failing is the best way to learn. It's the most painful way to learn, but it's the best way.
Yeah, fail forward, they say.
Exactly. This is what you do.
Do you want to do more Melee content? Did any of this experience, especially the reaction, sour any of that, or do you feel like, you know, you'll just change your approach and it'll be fine? Do you want to try and make a movie next time? Like, what, like, if you want to do Melee content, like, I just want you to say, like, what if you wanted to do it? And I'm not saying you do, but like, do you want to, and what are you thinking about it?
I'm always interested in compelling stories, and there are so many compelling stories in Melee. Having Axe win that summit was like, you know, after been trying for years and years, like, you could make an Axe documentary,
and someone has
about that. Like build up to that sort of that moment.
Yeah,
I need to watch that then.
Turn Down for Walt made that one.
Turn Down for Walt. Okay, I have to write that down right now. The only reason I ever want to make anything is because I want to watch it.
Okay, well, luckily for you, it's already. Well, I mean, you would bring your own skills to it, of course, but
obviously. But that's my point. Is that, like, there absolutely are oodles of more stories to tell in the Melee community, and so I would be interested in doing that. It did. I felt a little disillusioned with the reaction on day 2 to some things, but you know, I feel like as soon as we're back in in-person events and we walk into the same venue and we're all together, as like it
feels good.
Yeah, it's just gonna feel good. You know, and again, like the Twitter voices are amplified, I think, in certain ways. I still like the amount of love that I get about the project and people really loving it is just as much. It's just, it's not, those voices don't get amplified.
Right.
So I'm still very keen on it. I love Melee. I love the community, and I think there's a lot more left to be told. I could see doing smaller form Melee content. I don't know.
Right, you did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, I would do. I just don't want to be. Every time you add another 10 minutes to the project you're doing, you exponentially make it more difficult, because you have to, every second on screen has to be connected to every other second on screen. And it's a very, if you're doing it well, it all feels connected. That's
a really interesting way of putting it. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's something that I felt very keenly when I was doing this, because even the episode length, like the Smash Brothers episode length, are more like 30 minutes generally. Versus the average length of the Metagame episodes are like 50 minutes. And adding that extra time, it really exponentially makes the every minute is exponentially more difficult as far as tying the cables together and making sure that everything makes sense. You're not boring people too much with any section. So yeah, it's I'm keen to have 5 to 10 minutes be my playground for a little bit.
Sure. Well, I think many people would still be interested in that. So, really just one last question. How does it feel being on the other end of an interview, Big Shot?
It's weird, man. It's so weird. I feel like I'm on the other side of the camera, which I guess I am. But...
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get tri-lighting for this one. You'll have to forgive me.
That's on my end. Probably. I give myself the mood lighting here, or blow myself out. So
beautiful.
But no, it's great. I mean, I love talking with you, man. I feel like psychically we might have been slightly connected.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe disconnected at birth or something. Like weird how each of us had these updates that were coming around at the same time.
Yes.
So I'm very happy to kind of talk about the process and reminisce too.
Yeah, and one last question related to that, and then I'll turn it over to chat. Does being on the other side of the interview, does it help for any future projects? Because I know before you were very uncomfortable about that. You almost didn't want to put references to the Smash Brothers in Metagame. So does that change anything? Will we see Samox in the third documentary finally? Will we see his beautiful face, or no?
Well, I did already fulfill the full frontal male nudity promise that I made.
That's true. It wasn't in the documentary, unfortunately.
It wasn't in the documentary, unfortunately. I think there's definitely potential for me to take on more of a host role in a certain sense. For if I do certain styles, like I was thinking, like along the lines of maybe a Vsauce style, where you do have someone kind of talking at camera. So that's a potential. I don't know how exactly I feel about that. Sometimes I feel like a disembodied voice is more. I don't know. It's because you have to. The honest truth is, if you don't like the person, if you don't have that connection right away with the person, and people make snap judgment decisions all the time, then it's sort of then they're off. Like, I don't want to listen to this guy. I don't like his voice or whatever. I think having a face on the screen amplifies that problem. So it's sometimes easier to just have a disembodied voice. But I don't know. I think I've got a mug that's
I'm about to say, if you're worried about what your face is holding you back, I don't think that's a great argument, I'll be honest.
I cut my own hair. It was the COVID haircut.
I did notice it was going in many directions, but you're still working it.
I'm trying, man. My hair, it's crazy. It's got like 2 calyx going in opposite directions. It's impossible with it.
That's exciting. That just shows we're all in a time of change right now, including our hair.
I'm becoming a barber.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, this documentary thing doesn't work out, I guarantee you, hairstylists stay in business.
Hell yeah, man.
All right. Well, let me turn it over to chat. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I do think that people will enjoy that. Chat. All right, you're back. What's up? Okay, you guys are here. What's up? Are you playing Slippy? I already asked him that at the beginning. He said no. He's too busy. He's trying to save Melee.
No math questions too.
No math questions. No math. I will ban you if you do math. No math. No math. Let's see. How are you, Samox? That's a good question.
I'm good. I'm really good. I've been really lucky during the the quarantine, I've been able to have you know, my new girl, time to get to know my new girlfriend. So
nice.
She's awesome. She's also
that's wonderful.
Games.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. I'm happy for you. Happy for her. She's a lucky lady. I will say that.
She thinks so too.
Hey, let's go, Samox. Let's freaking go. All right, we'll ask a question. A couple people asked this one. Will the soundtrack be released? I actually have seen this one a lot, and I forgot to ask. So
yes. Yeah, he did such a great job with a lot of those tracks. He really deserves, you know.
So he wrote the music in its entirety for this, or
not all of it. There definitely a lot of it was done by the main people were him. He was the main guy. Also, obviously there was a lot of tracks by Kevin MacLeod. If you don't know that name, in Compotech. If you you'll hear a lot of sort of royalty-free music on YouTube made by this guy, Kevin MacLeod. Awesome guy. He's gonna have a documentary released about him, I believe, this year. Because he kind of helped do. He's an incredible dude. He releases this music for free, royalty-free. But my brother also, Jesse, wrote that final battle where it's you versus Leffen. You know, like do that one.
Yeah.
Which he was inspired by Stranger Things, was sort of an influence for that. But you know, that's part of the problem is there are multiple artists like my brother, Mello, who did a lot of the music. Garrett, obviously. So
drop your mixtape.
The mixtape, baby. So,
put that on there at the end. I'm telling you, you want to expand your artistic endeavors. You can collab. I mean, it's perfect for you. I'm just saying.
I don't know if you know this. I do have a SoundCloud. Like, I wanted to do music for a few years after college. I was so done with making movies because I've been doing it since I was 8.
Oh yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with the making music and become a singer-songwriter. So I do have the evidence of that on my SoundCloud.
Cool.
So if you're curious.
Cool. All right. Do you like SummoningSalt's documentaries?
I think I watched one of them. Remind me again.
I mean, one of the most recent ones. He's done a lot of Mario Kart 64 ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of Mario Kart 64. It was the quest for Mario Kart 64 dominance, I think, was a big one. I actually really enjoyed that one. I mean, they're all good, but
I don't know if I've watched. Does SummoningSalt also do one about like a speed run or something?
He does. All of his are about speedruns. It tells speedrunning game stories. Yes.
Yes, I think that's what I'm remembering. I think the GoldenEye one was one that he did that I remember, and I have. It's been a while. I watched that one a while ago. So I have to get back, and I'm writing these down too. So if anybody else has some good suggestions, please let me know.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask this one because I mean we shouted it out, but have you talked to Bronol? Have you seen any of Bronol's documentaries? That's the French guy. I told you about him, and we talked a little bit ago.
Yes, I haven't actually watched them yet. I have seen all the art associated with it. I think who did the artwork for that?
It's probably. I mean, the artwork for Metagame. You're talking about Germ?
No. This was specific artwork. It's like the one with like the black.
Yeah, the bar. I'm not sure. Justin
really
Wharton. Someone in chat saying.
Justin Wharton. I haven't watched.
Good job, chat.
The Bronol docs yet. I do want to watch them.
They are all subtitled.
Partly to learn French. But
right, also, your last name. Do you mind saying?
Beauchamp. Which is
Bonsoir, French goobers.
I think it's even like that's a bastardized American way of trying to sound French too.
No, you nailed it. They love it when you speak French. Don't worry, man.
Bonsoir. Oui, MD.
Oh, yes, sir. Let's see. Weirdest thing that someone has noticed and let you know of in either of the series?
That's a good question. I will say someone recently, I think it was one of my patrons, recognized that it was like a really brief shot of I think it's the pound 5 finals in episode 3, and it says pound 3 instead of pound 5. And this, I have to say, trying to keep all these straight, the brackets straight, and tell this to my graphic guy, Garrett Williams, or not Garrett Williams, Daniel Wyatt. It was particularly confusing because there's a lot of similar sounding things. I had to make a spreadsheet, make sure that everything was kind of kept track of.
Right.
But that one I guess slipped through, so I actually edited it out using some quick little ninja edits, so it now says pound 5.
Well, there you go. Just another good thing about I think it's the slight delay before Vimeo.
Exactly. But I've spent so much time with all the footage. I feel like those things are pretty rare. It's more likely that I'll edit something with someone will not notice. Like in the original Smash Brothers documentary, at the end of Korean DJ's episode, you can see as it's pushing in on his face, and he kind of has like a nice look at him. There's a TV screen that was behind him, and I edited in sort of a blurred out shot of when he was a kid standing on that thing. So it's sort of like a moment where you could see the change, him becoming a man, and no one noticed that.
The weirdest thing, no one noticed.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Someone asked, when will the tweaked metagame be out? I will tell you, it is out now. Vimeo, go buy it, please. Please support this man. He is definitely not rich. He should be. It's a big sad. Please give him money. Thanks.
Cheers.
Is Big Nintendo an obstruction for your plans with this film at all?
I don't think so. I mean, Nintendo, I that's part of why you have like lawyers, right? Like they'll advise you on stuff. And
so you did have lawyers at one point.
Yes, I mean you want to do that when you're putting together, like having people sign stuff. They were the ones that kind of gave us these sheets that we have people sign. You sign this, so that we can use your stuff in the documentary.
Lawyers are expensive.
They are, and this is the thing. This is why, you need money to make stuff. Which is, I didn't know that. I thought you could make things without money.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, but no. Documentaries have what's called they have protections.
Okay.
Fair use protections. They're, again, I'm not a lawyer. Don't listen to me. Talk to a lawyer, but. What they told us we're fine as far as fair use goes.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
You wouldn't be able to have documentaries about certain things if anybody could just come in and slap you down. So that is heartening to know.
They can't stop him, is what he's saying. They can't do anything.
But
he's untouchable.
I would say that I do regret the fact that I wish that there was more that Nintendo would reach out positively to the community about.
Yes.
So there's just a lot of missed opportunities, I think.
You're telling me.
Our lifetimes.
Zane could be a lock for sponsorship if you make a certain kind of mini doc. Homie, he's sponsored, right? Yeah, so that was just a free one. That's not something you have to answer. Let's see. What's your favorite part of documentary filmmaking specifically?
Oh man, it's sort of I guess. I mean, I love editing. I love seeing a bunch of disparate pieces and trying to make a narrative out of them. That part it happens in my mind, happens on paper. That's wonderful. I feel like, in a way that's maybe more spiritual than I can properly describe, I feel like narrative storytelling is very closely associated with just life in general, the way that we understand ourselves, the way we interact in day-to-day lives. I feel like if you understand narrative structure, you start understanding more about life itself. So it's almost a life-affirming thing to try to construct a narrative, which is almost what your brain does subconsciously every day about who you are and you're the story of your own life. So and which is something that I like the fact that you talked about that in your episode where you lived your life like a story where you can track it. I think that's just something that we all do. Yeah, it's a very human thing, and that's reflected in the art of editing and the thing where you're trying to give life to a certain perspective.
I mean, it really just sounds like the whole thing is infused with it for you. Except the part with lawyers. That's probably not the story part.
You know, when you're going to film school and you learn like, the art of this shot or whatever, they don't talk to you about the art of the lawyers.
Yeah, and eating beans.
Yeah, eating beans.
tough parts, not the.
Yeah, not to knock for Bryce and beans, but you know.
Yeah, no, I mean they're fine.
They're delicious.
Do you plan on doing any speedrun content? If so, are you interested in any games?
Ooh. You know, I did have an extra that I wanted to do about speedrunning. Speedrunning there's a lot of overlap between Melee and speedrunning.
Yes, there is. A lot of really interesting stories, depending on how you go back. Foundational characters in speedrunning being notable figures, and sometimes very notable figures in Melee, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the interviews that I did, like some of the core interviews I would need for that segment that I did, are people that are no longer welcome in this community, and unfortunately means that my plans for that segment are probably on the kibosh, because they talked extensively about speedrunning and how it related to Melee. Although Toph does talk a little bit about that same thing, so I might be able to salvage something from those. But as far as doing them myself, I think the only one that I'm really good at speedrunning right now would be Super Mario Land for the original Game Boy. So I might do that. I don't know. I'm very interested in it as a subject. I don't know if I'm any good at it. So
you're talking about making documentaries about it, or actually doing it?
Oh, well, I don't know. I thought the question sounded like I would be doing it.
Oh, myself. You know, the question was about would you be interested in making documentaries about it? Apologies for not being clear.
Absolutely. No, sorry. I was like, no, I'm not known for my speedrunning skills.
Just be fast. Duh.
Yeah. But yes, absolutely. Again, I specifically had a segment in mind. It's just that, unfortunately, outside events have forced my hand.
Right. I mean, so maybe there's ways to get more footage eventually, and then maybe you could. So that's something you're considering.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Gotcha.
I might be able to salvage it. So.
Okay.
I have footage of Noisy and Fuzziness at DreamHack 2014. It was briefly in the doc, but I'm like on stage, some cool shots of them. So it was going to be sort of like a sister piece. So I might be able to rescue it.
Gotcha. Let's see. I think we'll do. This is our last one, probably. Yeah, we'll do one more. Doesn't have to be gaming specific, but did any other documentaries inspire your style?
Oh yes. I mean, I mentioned it before, but I will mention it every time that this question is asked me. But The Civil War by Ken Burns was the biggest influence on me as far as how to make a documentary compelling, especially about historical stuff, because he goes so well on delving into individual stories, the way that people are conflicted themselves, to like their local conflicts, and then a larger scale stuff. So that one gave me the confidence to be like, okay, if I want to tell a story about a community, a story about people, a story about the inside of someone, like I can always, that was the inspiration for me. It was like. And I said this on one of my Samox faxes, which you can get if you're at the $5 tier on Patreon.
I promised I was going to show it for you.
Well, I'm working on a batch of metagame version ones. They've all been about the Smash Brothers. Now they're going to start shifting over into the little tidbits about the production.
So when you say Samox faxes, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sorry. That's I assume people would know. They're little infographics. They come out, intermittently. There are times when they come out every day. Other times they come out once a month or once a week. But they're little bits of the production process, or little bits that you wouldn't necessarily know about. Like, so, for example, there is one that talks about what my influences are, or the way that I kind of conceived of the project when I was first thinking of it. And that was very much influenced by two things. Number one was The Civil War by Ken Burns, and number two was Dragon Ball Z. So those two influences combined to make the Smash Brothers.
Right, a beautiful fusion dance, if you will.
Exactly. So if you're interested in facts like that, that's on the $5 tier for sure.
Right, and so just so we know, we're just going to kind of plug it here at the end. Samox, part of the reason he's been able to afford doing this and not have to dip into his savings and not go into super debt and all that stuff.
I don't have any more savings, so it's okay.
Yeah, there's no more to dip into. But the reason that didn't happen is because he has a Patreon where he will be putting out behind the scenes stuff, more full interviews with me, with everyone else that he shot with. He'll probably put out the individual one he did with Leffen, I imagine. So yeah, I mean, and it supports him in his. It probably supports him in his journeys to try and figure out how to put metagame somewhere else, and if he does more Melee content beyond that. So I really do think it's a good community investment. No bias, but I also think it's hard to argue with at this point as well. So patreon.com/Samox, SAMOX. You could support whatever level you feel comfortable with. And also Vimeo, Metagame is out now. It has come out on Friday. Please go there to get that. It is in the final form. Cannot power up possibly any further. Check it out, please. It is going to cost some, but 90% of that is going to go straight to Samox, which again, very important. Buy a copy for other people in your life too, like you said, couldn't hurt anything. So, thank you so much for everything you've done for Melee and for sitting down with me today. I am not an interviewer expert, as we have discovered by this, but I hope I did a decent enough job bringing all of the good that you have to bring out and the perspective that you have, because I think that was something that was lacking in the community.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You poo-poo yourself too much. I think you are an excellent interviewer, and you should probably consider this as a recurring thing for sure. Because you definitely got the chops, man. I appreciate being able to come on and talk about this stuff. And yeah, I think there's just more Melee content to be made.
Yes, absolutely. There's more Melee content to be made, more Melee to be played. Yeah, but again, thank you so much again for all your contributions to the community. I think your praises do not get sung enough. Like what you do to get us out into the mainstream, where so many people think Melee is just this, or even just gaming is just this weird little thing. And Ninja played with Drake one time, but now everyone forgot about that. But there's other stuff out there. And so thank you so much for the work that you do. We're truly lucky to have you, and I really hope that others watching this can get a sense of that as well. So thank you again, Samox, for your time and for all your efforts.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And before we end, obviously,
chat, let's get anime. So what is this? This, chat, is the anime that I was watching during Metagame. It is voiced by Toph, the commentator Toph, and streamer, YouTuber, all that good stuff, Toph. And this is the full unedited version of all of that, so we're going to kind of see this in all of its full weeb glory. Please get your IAs out. Please, PPMD Nation. It is time to rise up for the next 33 seconds. Weebs, I do hope we enjoy watching this together. Oh, snap. Oh, the inside.
邪悪でなくてもいい。殺さこめ。
Oh, snap, the side character commenting. Oh. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Beautiful. Wow. Let's get another one of the wows. Wow. Was Toph? That wasn't Toph, was it? That's good stuff. Heck yeah. This Melee anime is real. We did it, weebs. Yo.
Dude, so what'd you think?
I think it's good. I like that you had the... I always love the DBZ sound effects. I'm a sucker for those. I like that there was the internal voice, and then it's deeper. I don't know how to do Japanese or whatever, but it's and then he's on the inside. I think that's super funny. Yeah, and then there's there's a hitting, and then they're saying the things to each other. It is very much like anime. I think when they were fighting, he probably should have been a little more aggressive with what he was saying. But overall, it's cool. It's such a cool idea. And then what is the wow at the end? I have to know. I have to know what that is.
That was like a little audio file of some kind. I think someone in chat might have mentioned it. It is like it's a stock kind of sound. But
Can I make that my donation notification? Sure. That is pretty funny. I kind of want to do that.
So and just so you know, just that guy who's like talking, that has the glasses. That's M2K+, Moxie MD's picture. And those are all Toph voices. And I just kind of like put some weird changes to his voice to make it. Yeah. And then obviously the battle is you and Leffen. That's the sort of like to come thing where he's calling you Ishi-san. I guess that's doctor.
Okay, I see.
I asked Toph, and he was like, I was like, is there anything, how do you do this in Japanese or whatever? So Ishi-san, I guess, is doctor. So you're Dr. PPP in that,
right?
And then he's fighting you and Leffen because it's you and or the Marth and the Fox. So
yeah,
and it's sort of just like a little silly ad or addition to it. I originally was just trying to look for like a public domain anime that I could just have on the background, but I couldn't find the right one, and I wasn't sure about the legalities of some of them. So
yeah, it's like, very weird. Like some streamers watch anime on stream, but I think they have like some cleared stuff for it, but I think some streamers just think they can get away with it. So I don't know. I have no idea what like. Yeah, I mean, obviously in your situation, there's no reason to take those type of risks, but yeah, I mean, what you did, I think it ended up working fine. I think people see Melee as anime anyway, so I think that's great. And then I think my chat is really going to like the wow. So I think there is no way. I think there's no way that performs poorly.
Well, I'm happy I was able to show it to you. It's one of those things in the background. I'm just like, people aren't going to believe that I did this just for that one shot. So I'm glad I got to show it to you.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that that we got to reveal something. It's something I forgot. I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. I don't know if this part will go on YouTube. Probably will, because the wow is really funny, and they like that.
Probably should go on there.
Yeah, we'll probably put that on YouTube. But yeah, so I think that's good, man. Yeah, this was a fun thing. If you want to come on again and do something else, reveal something else, you want to plug something, like you can even, I don't know, if you just want to come on stream for like 5 minutes one day or something, and it was like, I'm doing a thing, then I'll be like, okay, come here and do it. I don't know.
Cheers, man. Yeah. I really appreciate it. I definitely want to have something to show if I'm coming back.
Sure.
So I'll let you know. And again, thank you so much for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great to have you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you so much for your time.
I will. You too, man. Have a good dream.
Okay, thank you. See ya.
Peace.